Alright, so here in this video, I'll be talking about rice cookery, yes, and we'll look at adaptations of methods and we'll look at methods and how they are evident in Nigerian cuisine. We'll look at methods of cooking rice and we'll look at how these apply in Nigerian cuisine also. So let's get right into it. Alright, so first of all, I'll look at methods and I'll discuss methods of cooking rice. Alright, so we have four methods of cooking rice. We have simmering, the simmering method. We have steaming. We have pilaf, and then we have risotto. All right. So simmering. What is simmering? Now, in simmering, no, this is the method I commonly refer to as boiling by most people. But something to notice is that we don't boil rice. So we don't boil. We won't say the method is boiling because boiling is actually cooking in water up to 100 degrees Celsius. But we really don't want to cook, bring the water up to boiling point. We don't want to bring the water to a roiling boil, no, but to a simmer, a gentle simmer. The boiling point of water is 100 degrees Celsius, and to cook in boiling water will mean to cook in water of 100 degrees Celsius. But usually the water temperature in this method of cooking would be about 60, 70 degrees Celsius to 90 degrees Celsius, depending on depending on factors and variation. So the we want to say we would rather say that we simmer the rice or simmer the pieces of yam or potato. No, it is important to simmer and not to boil in most dishes of meat preparation because when you bring the water up to a boiling boil of 100 degrees Celsius, usually the interior does not get cooked like as it ought to, whereas the water is constantly evaporating and vaporizing, and so it's using so much energy, and yet the interior of the food is not being cooked, it's not coming up to right doneness. So it's best and better to simmer foods and not boil. And so we describe this method of cooking as simmering and not boiling. All right, so we it's a similar method of cooking, which is cooking foods in water close to a temperature of 100 degrees Celsius, or close to a boiling temperature. Methods in this we have the commonly referred to as boiled rice in Nigeria. So we have boiled white rice, or boiled ofada, or boiled local rices of different varieties. We might have the Abakaliki rice, or other local rice varieties, or white rice. Where the in this method, yes, of course, we have that the rice is cooked till it's done, and then the water is drained out. Yes, so that is simmer. That is simmering. That's very important to note. The water is drained out after the excess water is drained after the food has been brought to doneness. And then here we also have yes, so yes, we have boiled white rice, and we have even ofada and other local rice varieties boiled to done simmer till doneness, and then the excess water drained out. All right, so we move to the second method of cooking. Here we have the steaming method. Now this is a very interesting method of cooking, and in Nigerian cuisine, this method is used commonly to complete the cooking process of a lot of rice dishes, and not it's not usually used as a whole method of cooking on its own. For example, we have steaming that is used to complete the cooking of dishes such as jollof rice, coconut rice, the different varieties of jollof rice, concussion rice dishes. But we'll come to this later, even as we go. We'll look at this much more even as we go on. All right, so we'll go to the third method of cooking rice, which is the pilaf method. Now, in pilaf, the rice is cooked in very flavorful liquid, and it's cooked to doneness. It's cooked such that the rice would eventually absorb all of that liquid and then come to eventually stand on its own. The grains would have to be separate and not sticky or mashy, but distinctly separate and distinctly very flavorful, carrying the flavor of the liquid in which it was cooked in. So that is the pilaf method. And then this method we see commonly, we have jollof rice dishes. This method is, I would say, is used commonly in a lot of Nigerian dishes. That is apart from the simmered or boiled dishes. All right, so we have jollof rice. We have all varieties of jollof rice. We have many varieties of jollof rice in Nigeria. There's jollof rice. There's asun jollof rice. There's concussion rices. There is rice dishes. Sorry. there's concoction rice dishes, there is coconut rice, there's coconut jollof, there is so many dishes like that. Then we have fried rice, Nigerian fried rice. So in this method of cooking, we have the rice cooked in these. Alright, so for all jollof rice dishes, for concussion rice of varying types, and then fried rice. So this pilaf method is most versatile, very versatile in Nigerian rice cookery. Okay, so then we'll move on to the last method, which is the um, now, so I forgot to mention that in the steaming method of cooking, we also have the ewok edesi. The ewok edesi is a local rice dish, where the rice is cooked in coconut leaves. The way it's cooked in banana leaves wrapped, and then sometimes they are cooked with cocoyam pieces. So this method will be a method of steaming. Will be the method of steaming. So in addition to finishing dishes, we also have the ewok edesi as part of a dish or meal under the steaming method of cooking in Nigerian cuisine. Alright, so we move to the last method, which is the risotto. So during the risotto, now this method of cooking is not abundant in Nigerian cuisine because Nigerian cuisine does not emphasize cheese, butter, and the likes. But in this method of cooking, in the risotto method of cooking, the rice is cooked in the liquid, but we use the rice is cooked in such a way that it absorbs all of the liquid, and it's cooked in excess of liquid such that it will eventually become creamy and slightly mushy. It's going to absorb the liquid, and the liquid is going to be excess for it such that it does not absorb everything, and then it end up having the rice in a kind of mixture along with the liquid such that it becomes creamy. And so that is the risotto method of cooking rice. It uses cheese traditionally, or in the French cuisine it uses a lot of cheese, butter, fat, but and then it uses the arboreal rice variety, the round rice, or short grain rice. Rice is not the bigger varieties of rice grains, or the smaller ones, the round ones, or the short grain ones, such that it's easy for it to not absorb all of the liquid so that it becomes creamy eventually, which we want to achieve in the risotto method of cooking rice. So so for the risotto method, like I said, it's not abundantly spread throughout Nigerian cooking, but I would say that the ewok edesi falls under this method also. The reason is that we want to cook for ewok edesi, we want to achieve a creamy result finally. So why it's not cooked in liquid, because ewok edesi is actually steamed, but it can also be cooked in this method too to achieve that creamy texture. It can also be cooked using the risotto style method. Alright, so we have it, we've seen it. We would say now I'll move on to something very interesting. We'll see how that in rice cuisine, or in rice cookery in Nigerian cuisine, we actually have hybrid method of cooking a lot of rice dishes. What I mean is that a lot of rice dishes in Nigerian cuisine are not cooked using just plain one method of cooking. No, is that a lot of rice dishes are actually cooked using a combination of two of these methods of cooking. So we would have for example, we have the jollof rice and all kinds of jollof rice, all kinds of concoction rice varieties, all kinds of coconut rice, and the fried rice. These are cooked using a combination of two methods mostly. So, for example, the jollof rice, the coconut rice, the concoction rice varieties are cooked using, I would say, the method of pilaf plus steaming. They're cooked pilaf because the rice is cooked in the fluffy liquid, and then it absorbs the liquid, but eventually the rice grains still stand on their own. But steaming method is mostly used to finish this method of cooking because, for example, you hear that, oh, the jollof rice, cover it with a parchment paper and then allow the rice to steam till doneness. So at that particular time, the rice is almost done. It's most likely it's almost done, but it is then steamed. It is cooked in the vapor of the liquid. It has to be covered with parchment paper or foil paper and then allowed to cook in the steam of the liquid so that it can develop a smoky, deep, earthy flavor that we've come to associate Nigerian jollof rice with. Nigerian jollof rice, we want to achieve that smoky, deep, hot flavor, and that is achieved using the steaming method. So it's like we cook with pilaf first and then we finish with steaming. It's the same thing goes with a lot of other jollof varieties depending on what you want to achieve. The method also goes for coconut rice or most coconut jollof rice. But when it comes to the fried rice and coconut fried rice, the method will be stir fry first, then pilaf. Because for fried rice, we want to stir fried rice, we want to heat it first in some amount of fat or oil first of all, before then cooking it in the flavorful liquid afterwards. So for fried rice and its varieties, we have pilaf. We have stir fry plus pilaf. So stir fry first, and then we finish with pilaf. And then for concussion rices, it's also pilaf first, then steaming. Pilaf first, and then we finish with steaming. Pilaf first, then finish with steaming, which is when you actually want to be really, really serious with your concussion rice dish, because most concussion rice might just be, we could just say, a lot of concussion rice which is just basic preparations might just be described as pilaf alone, because they might not necessarily be finished with steaming. Steaming would Finishing with steaming might be as a highly priced method, which might be reversed. We can say it might be reserved for the our jollof rice, which we so much love and we want it to have a smoky flavor. So we want to like finish it properly with steam method of cooking. Now concussion rice, not all concussion rice dishes might be finished that way. Not all concussion rice dishes might be finished that way in Nigerian cuisine. So we have concussion rice might be just plainly pilaf. So I would say that when it comes to tuwo, which is a rice swallow that we have in Nigerian cuisine, I would say that tuwo falls under the risotto method of cooking. Although, like I said, Nigerian cuisine does not emphasize cheese, butter, and the cream and the likes, but the tuwo method, the tuwo rice dish, which is short grain rice cooked in water until it's creamy and then eventually resembles a very very soft dough. It's not risotto exactly. It's not risotto because it's more or less has to be firm enough to be able to roll into the ball swallows to eat with soup, but in a way it resembles the risotto principle of cooking. So I'll classify tuwo under risotto method of cooking. Then I'll finish it with steaming, because eventually it's finished in the vapor of the hot liquid, which is actually just water. So thank you.